They say money can buy anything, but not miracles, and that night proved it true for Ethan Cole, the billionaire who had everything, except peace in his heart. The sound of rain crashed against the hospital, windows like 1,000 tiny hammers, and the thunder rolled across the city skies as if nature itself was warning him that something life-changing was about to happen. He rushed through the sterile white corridors, his expensive shoes echoing loudly as he searched for the delivery room. His heart pounded faster with every step. His wife Clara was in labor. After years of trying, after countless prayers and tears, this was supposed to be their moment of joy, the night their family would finally be complete. The moment he saw the red light above the delivery room, his knees went weak. He pressed his palm against the cold glass, staring through the narrow window. His wife was screaming. The nurses were rushing, and machines were beeping endlessly. He had been through business wars worth billions, but nothing had ever made him feel this helpless. Minutes felt like hours until finally the doctor walked out, his face pale and tired. His expression said more than words ever could. Ethan stood up, his voice trembling. "What happened? Are they all right?" The doctor hesitated and then spoke softly. "Mr. Cole, your twins are alive, but there's a complication." Ethan's world tilted as the words left the doctor's lips. The twins were born with a rare spinal condition that might keep them from ever walking again. The air seemed to vanish. From the hallway, Clara's weak voice broke through the silence. "Let me see them, please." Ethan followed her into the room. The babies lay so small and fragile, their tiny fingers curling. Around his thumb, he tried to smile, but his heart shattered. Inside, he had built empires and crushed competitors. He had bought anything he desired with a single call, but now all his power felt useless. Days turned into weeks, and the mansion that once echoed with laughter turned into a house of whispers and tears. Clara would sit by the nursery window for hours, staring at nothing while Ethan drowned himself in work, hoping to forget the pain. He threw money at every doctor and specialist across the world, but each one returned with the same hopeless expression. He was a man who could move mountains, but now he couldn't move the legs of his own children. And on one cold morning, when all hope seemed lost, the agency sent a new maid. Her name was Grace, and from the moment she stepped into their lives, nothing would ever be the same again. Grace arrived on a quiet Monday morning, just as the sun broke through the gray clouds that had hung over the Cole mansion for weeks. She was not what Ethan or Clara expected. She carried no expensive luggage, no polished accent, and no airs of superiority like the other caretakers who had come and gone. Her dark skin glowed under the morning light, and her simple uniform looked almost too plain for the golden marble floors of the billionaire's home. Yet there was something in her calm eyes, something deep and peaceful, that seemed to fill the room with warmth. The agency had promised she was experienced with children, especially those needing special care, but Ethan was skeptical. After all, no one had lasted more than a month in this house. The twins required constant attention, and Clara's sadness made the atmosphere heavy, but Grace simply smiled when she saw the babies lying in their crib. Her voice was soft and steady, like a gentle song from a distant memory. She introduced herself to them as if they could already understand. "Hello, my little angels," she whispered, and for the first time in days, the babies stopped crying. Ethan stood at the doorway watching. Silently, Grace didn't notice him at first. She opened a small cloth bag and took out a tiny glass bottle filled with a golden herbal oil. She rubbed a little between her palms, then began to massage the baby's legs slowly and carefully. Her touch was tender, almost sacred, as she hummed a low tune that seemed older than time itself. Ethan couldn't place it, but something about that melody made the air feel lighter. Clara walked in just then, her face still pale from sleepless nights. She frowned slightly. "What are you doing?" she asked the doctors. "Said there's nothing we can do." Grace looked up and smiled kindly. "Sometimes, ma'am." "What? Medicine cannot heal love," can Ethan noticed how her words didn't sound forced or foolish. They carried conviction, a quiet certainty that made him hesitate to interrupt. That evening, as the house grew still, Ethan found himself standing by the nursery door. Again, he could hear Grace singing softly, her voice blending with the rhythm of the night outside. The city lights flickered far away but inside. The mansion, for the first time in months' peace, seemed to breathe again. Ethan didn't understand why, but in that moment he knew this woman, this mysterious Maid, was not ordinary. She had brought something money could never buy: hope. Days turned into weeks, and strange things began to happen in the Cole mansion, things that science could not explain, things that made Ethan question everything. He believed in the twins who once cried endlessly, now giggled the moment Grace entered the room. Their little faces would light up like sunshine after rain, and their restless nights grew calm whenever she sang. Ethan tried to ignore it, telling himself it was just coincidence. But deep down, he felt something shifting. He started noticing small details. Grace always carried that little glass bottle with her, and every evening she would gently warm the oil between her palms before massaging the twins' legs. Her hands would move in slow, rhythmic circles, and she would whisper words too soft to understand. Sometimes Ethan thought he heard her praying, but the words weren't like any prayer he knew. They sounded ancient, like a song carried by faith. Alone one night, as he passed by the nursery door, he stopped because he saw something that froze him in place. Grace's hands seemed to shimmer faintly in the dim light, a soft glow wrapping around her fingers. He blinked, and it was gone, leaving him wondering if his tired mind had played tricks on him. Clara didn't believe any of it. She told Ethan that Grace's singing and oils were just useless rituals. She said they should focus on real doctors and real treatments. But Ethan wasn't so sure. He couldn't deny what he saw. He couldn't deny the strange peace that had returned to their home. The air felt lighter, the tension softer. Even Clara was sleeping better. Grace never complained. No matter how long the days were, she worked, quietly prayed softly, and loved the twins as if they were her own. One evening, Ethan came home earlier than usual and found Grace on her knees beside the crib. Her head was bowed, her eyes filled with tears as she whispered, "Lord, if it be your will, let your mercy touch these children and make them whole." Ethan stood frozen, unable to move or speak. He had not prayed in years, not since the day he lost his parents, and decided that faith was for the weak. But watching her there with such pure belief stirred something inside him, something long buried beneath layers of pride and pain. He wanted to ask her about the prayers, about the glow, about what she truly believed. But before he could, the phone rang. It was the doctor, and his voice sounded grim. Twins' condition was worsening, and surgery might be the only hope. Ethan's heart sank again, not knowing that this moment would lead him closer to the miracle he never expected. The news from the doctor hit Ethan harder than any business loss ever could. His voice had been calm and clinical over the phone, but every word felt like a blade cutting deeper into Ethan's chest. The twins were getting weaker, their muscles tightening, their chances of walking slipping. Further away, Clara broke down, completely sobbing in his arms. "Why is this happening to us, Ethan?" she cried. "Haven't we done enough good? Haven't we helped enough people? Why can't we fix our own children?" Ethan had no answer. For once, the billionaire, who always had solutions, stood silent. That night, the storm returned, the same kind that had raged the night. The twins were born. Lightning flashed across the sky, throwing wild shadows against the mansion walls. Ethan couldn't sleep. He walked through the dark hallways until he reached the nursery. The faint glow of a lamp spilled across the floor, and he saw Grace sitting quietly by the crib, humming her same soft tune. Her eyes were closed, her hands resting on the twins' tiny legs. He hesitated, then stepped inside. She looked up and smiled as if she had been expecting him. "Grace," he said, his voice low, "do you really believe your prayers can help them?" She didn't answer right away. Instead, she looked down at the sleeping babies, then back at him. "Sir, I don't heal anyone," she said gently. "God does, but I've seen things I can't explain. And I've learned that when faith and love work together, nothing is impossible." Ethan sighed and turned away. He had built towers out of steel and glass, and yet he couldn't build faith inside himself. He said bitterly, "Money builds the world, Grace." Her eyes softened. "Maybe, sir," she said, "but if money could build peace, why are you still broken?" The question hit him like thunder. He opened his mouth, but no words came. For the first time in years, Ethan Cole, the man who commanded boardrooms and nations, felt small, fragile, human. He sank into the chair beside her and said, quietly, I don't know how to believe. Any more? Grace took his hand and said, then let me believe for you for now. They sat together in silence while the rain whispered outside. Grace began to pray again, her voice soft but steady. Ethan closed his eyes, not sure why, but something in him loosened. The walls he had built around his heart started to crack just enough for hope to breathe again. The morning came quietly. After weeks of gray skies, the sunlight spilled across the nursery, like liquid gold touching everything with warmth. Ethan was sitting in his office, buried in paperwork, trying to lose himself in numbers when his phone rang. It was Grace. Her voice trembled with excitement but also disbelief. Sir, please come home now. He didn't ask questions. He just ran out of the office and drove faster than he ever had before. When he burst through the mansion doors, he heard laughter pure and bright, laughter that echoed through the hallways, something he hadn't heard since the twins were born. He rushed to the nursery, and what he saw made his world stop. The twins, little Noah and Lily, were standing. Their tiny legs wobbled, uncertain but strong, and they were walking one shaky step after another toward Grace, who waited with open arms. Clara gasped and dropped to her knees, tears pouring down her face. Ethan could not breathe, he felt, as if time itself had stopped. Grace knelt down, smiling through her own tears. Come on, my angels, she whispered. You can do it, and they did. The same children doctors said would never walk were now moving, their little legs steady and alive. Ethan fell to his knees beside them, unable to speak. His heart swelled with emotions too big for words. The man who had spent billions trying to fix the unfixable now witnessed a miracle that no money could buy. Clara clutched the twins, close, sobbing. It's not possible, she cried, but Ethan knew it was. He just didn't know how. He looked at Grace, her eyes filled with light, almost glowing in the morning sun. How, he whispered, how is this possible? Grace looked at him with gentle certainty. I told you, sir, sometimes love and faith can do what science cannot. Later, the doctor arrived, his mouth falling open when he saw the children. He examined them again and again, shaking his head. This is medically impossible, he murmured, but the proof was right in front of them. The children could walk. They could move. They could live freely. Ethan stood silently, watching them take another step, this time toward him. He knelt down and opened his arms, catching them both as they laughed. His tears fell onto their soft hair, and for the first time in his life, they were not tears of pain but of gratitude. He looked up at Grace, still standing quietly in the corner, and whispered, thank you, not just for them, but for saving me. From that day on, Ethan Cole was never the same man. The cold, hard billionaire who once counted his worth in dollars now measured his life in moments of gratitude and love. He no longer spent his days chasing contracts or buying companies. Instead, he devoted his time and fortune to helping others. He built a children's hospital, a place where families could find hope without worrying about money. He named it the Grace Center for healing, in honor of the woman who had changed everything, the woman who had reminded him what faith truly meant. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the city skyline, turning the sky to gold and crimson, Ethan went to find Grace. He wanted to thank her again, to offer her anything she wished, a house, a car, a lifetime salary. But when he reached her room, it was empty. Her few belongings were gone. The bed, neatly made, and on the small wooden table was a folded note, written in delicate handwriting. It read, Sir, my work here is done. The true healing was never in the children's legs, but in your heart. Keep faith alive and keep giving hope to others. Grace? Ethan stood there holding the note, his vision blurring with tears. He walked to the window where his twins were playing on the grass, their laughter carried by the evening wind. Clara stood nearby, smiling brighter than she had in years. Ethan felt peace settle over him for the first time since that stormy night in the hospital. He looked up at the sky, whispering softly, thank you for the angel you sent me. From that day forward, he believed that angels didn't always have wings. Sometimes they came in the form of ordinary people who carried extraordinary faith. Grace had given him more than healing. She had given him a reason to live. As the camera slowly zooms out, soft music begins to play, the sound of children laughing mixed with gentle piano notes. The sun sets behind the mansion, bathing everything in warm, golden light. Narrator voice warm and calm. Faith, love, and kindness can create miracles that money never can. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more inspiring stories just like this. And always remember, sometimes the greatest miracles begin with a simple act of faith.